I hereby declare this meeting of the Howell Township Zoning Board to be open. Adequate notice having been given pursuant to the New Jersey Open Public Meeting Act in the following manner. First, on January 10th, 2017, a copy of said notice was mailed to the Star-Ledger and the Tri-Town News. Second, on January 10th, 2017, a copy of said notice was hand-delivered to the clerk of the Township of Howell. Third, on January 10th, 2017, said notice was posted in the office of the Zoning Board and on the bulletin board in the Howell Township Municipal Building, 4567 Route 9, Howell Township, New Jersey. In accordance with the Fire Prevention Code and your safety, please be advised that this facility is designed with 2 emergency exits, which are on your right at the front and rear of the meeting room. Furthermore, smoking is not permitted in the municipal building. Please take note that this meeting is being videotaped for possible future broadcast on Howell Township TV 77. Roll call.
Roll call, please.
Mr. Amata?
Here.
Mr. Cordalicchio has been excused. Mr. Mertens has been excused. Mr. O'Donnell?
Here.
Mr. Posh?
Here.
Mr. Turk?
Here.
Mr. Bloom?
Here.
And Chairman San Clemente?
Yes.
And Chairman Nansen's been excused. You have a quorum.
Yeah, okay. Would everyone please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Professional. Chair, I'll swear the professionals in, please. Swear the testimony you give this evening, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God. I do. The record should reflect that Jacob Abigail Planner, Sherry Spiro, Jack Mallon, and Matt Howard have all been sworn.
I can't.
Do we have any approval of minutes?
We have no minutes this evening,
Any vouchers?
no vouchers,
Correspondence?
correspondence, just anything that might have been mailed to the members, that's it. But Mr. Tropoli would like to address the board for a minute.
Okay.
Yes, Mr. Chair, I just wanted to congratulate the board on the appellate division decision that was made recently on June 15, 2017, in the matter of Howell Associates LLC. Judges Massano and Guadano, name that maybe some of you are familiar with, had sustained the board completely in every decision that the board made. So it's worth mentioning, and again, it's just a public mention to you. Mr. Gazarovski has 20 days to put together an application to the Supreme Court if he wishes to. Clock's ticking. I'll let you know what happens. But as of right now, every decision that was made by this board, whether it be as to the vote or anything, was sustained all the way up, just like I said in the press. So once again, congratulations.
Thank you, Ron.
Thank you. Great job.
Okay, we have one resolution. That's case number BA 16-10, SMC Properties, LLC, resolution granting preliminary and final major site plan, Woodlands Management, eligible voters, Cordalicchio, Mertens, Posh, San Clemente, Turk, and Bloom. Can we have a roll call, Eileen?
I need a motion first?
Oh, motion, excuse me.
Sorry.
Motion to approve the resolution?
Second?
That was
All
Mr.
in favor?
Turk.
Aye.
Any opposed?
I'll do a roll call on that. Mr.
Okay.
Posh?
Yes.
Mr. San Clemente?
Yes.
Mr. Turk?
Yes.
Mr. Bloom?
Yes.
Thank you. Resolutions memorialized.
Okay. All right, we have one application. Case number BA 17-2,
I will.
KBL Trading Company. Preliminary and final major site plan, use variance, woodland management. Application of KLB Trading Company as applicant, and Kenneth Stephen and Victor Gerard Jr. as owners seeking a use variance. Preliminary and final major site plan and woodlands management plan approval to construct an office, showroom, and various storage and maintenance buildings on premise known as Block 49, Lot 8.01, 281 Squonkam Road. Expiration August 18th, 2017.
Good evening, Mr.
Good
Chair,
evening.
members of the board. Salvatore Alfieri on behalf of the applicant. As the chair indicates, we're here tonight for, and I'll sit down in a minute, but we're here tonight for preliminary and final site plan approval and for use variance approval to basically redesign this project and this use so that it's a more efficient, more modern type of operation. The business itself is not changing, however, our first witness will be the owner of the business who's going to provide operational testimony, so you have a better feel for what occurs on site presently and how it will compare to what will go on if the board were to approve this application. And then we have several professional witnesses that we'll bring up after that. But our first witness is going to be Mr. Lynch.
Sal, would you like to have everyone brought up and sworn in? This way we can take them in. Just want to put on the record that we have 6 members this evening, so both Mr. Bloom and Mr. Turk are eligible to vote this evening on this application. Thank you.
Yeah, they don't have a full board.
Folks, would you raise your right hand, please? Swear that the testimony you'll give this evening, the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
I do.
Yes, sir. Starting with you, may we have your name?
Yes, Scott Kennel, Kennel, Donna and Ray Associates.
Very good, Scott. Thank you.
Edward O'Neill, O'Neill. Architect.
Thank you.
Michael Geller, Geller, professional engineer, professional planner.
Thank you.
William Lynch, owner, at Gerard Golf Course.
Very well. All sworn, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And Bill, sit here. And Mr. Lynch? Before we begin, you indicate you're the owner of Vic Gerard Golf Cars. Can you describe for the board how long you have been the owner of this business, and then how long this business has been in existence prior to your time?
I bought the company in 2005. Before that, the company was established by Mr. Gerard in Asbury Park in 1958. They moved to this site in 1968. So since 2005, I've owned it.
And can you describe for the board generally what your business is, what you sell, what your product is?
We are an exclusive distributor for club car products. That's golf cars primarily. We bring the cars in from the club car, and we sell them or lease them to various golf courses in the state. That's one aspect of the business.
Okay.
Second aspect is we have a rental fleet of golf cars. From April through October, there's a lot of the golf course customers that we have that need to supplement their fleets. We carry about 150 to 200 rental cars on that lot 8 months out of the year. We also recondition golf cars when they come off of golf courses, and we sell them to various people that live in 55 and older communities. Greenbrier, Ocean Air, Westlake is in the area. That's a portion of the retail business that we do on a daily basis. The third part is mechanical. We have 5 mechanics, so anyone that needs repair of golf cars, they either bring them in or we bring them back. So that's where our shop is contained right now. The other aspect is parts. We do a lot of parts business. We either send the parts out through UPS, or we have customers that visit us on a daily basis just to pick up parts and then move on. That's pretty much it. That's substantially the business and what we do on a day-to-day basis. It is seasonal right now. Part of the reason that we're looking to do this project is so that we can become more of a 12-month operation. We currently really can't do that because in the winter months, we can't work on the cars and then put them back outside. If we were able to have those internal warehouses in the back, we'd be able to work on the cars in those winter months, keep them in there for storage, and then be able to deliver to customers once March and April hit.
Now, can you describe, there's one other product. We came to this board for a use variance, and then you received a license from motor vehicle to sell a specific type of vehicle. Can you describe that vehicle?
It's called a low-speed vehicle, LSV. It's not a golf car. It is legal to ride out on the streets that are 25 miles an hour and under. We have a rental fleet of those of about 40 to 50, and we also sell those for retail, small volume.
And there currently are several structures that are located on the site. Can you describe for the board how those structures are being used presently, and then we'll get into what's being proposed as part of this application?
The chicken coops, which are on the the north portion, that long building that's there, we're using those as much as possible to store parts. The far end to the east, we use that as a small detail shop. Before we send cars back out to customers, they go through a detail process. And any golf course that's getting our new cars go through prep and delivery in that area also. The front greenhouse building is kind of a makeshift showroom for us right now. It just keeps the cars a little bit out of the sun and enables us, if it's raining or if there's any kind of snow or inclement weather, we can bring customers in there to take a look at some of the reconditioned cars that we're trying to sell. To the west of that is the masonry building. Our plan is for that building to remain on the property and to use it also to store either parts or golf cars, reconditioned golf cars. And the building behind that, moving to the south, is for parts only.
Now, as part of the LSV approval, we came to this board and received a variance for the retail sale of those vehicles, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you also received a license from motor vehicle since it's an on-road vehicle, and you maintain that license currently?
Yes.
In that approval that was granted back many years ago, there was a condition that there be no outdoor storage of parts and no dismantling of vehicles outside. Are you in compliance with that condition, and have you been in compliance since the approval was granted?
Yes, we are.
What do you actually store outside? Just actual golf carts?
Golf cars,
Okay, but no parts of any kind?
no parts of any kind.
All right, and if this board were to grant the approval, you would be able to eliminate the storage of the carts outside?
Yes.
Now, let's talk about the number of employees you have presently and how many employees you would have if this board were to grant the approval.
We presently have 23, and we would remain at 23.
How about shifts? Are the employees working in shifts?
We're on one shift right now from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
What about if the board were to grant this approval, would there be a change in the hours of operation?
No.
How about the retail end of the business? What would the hours be? What are the hours now, and what would they be if this approval were granted?
The same as hours of operation from 8 to 5, Monday through Friday.
How do you receive deliveries presently? Well, first, what kind of vehicles or trucks make deliveries to your site?
We have box trucks and also tractor trailers.
All right, and they are able to navigate the site presently?
It's very tight. Another reason why we're going into the other site plan and want to move the building up towards the road a little bit more so we can create the other picture of the new site is not up there, but we're creating a lot in the back just for a work area primarily. We'll have commercial entranceway, which will have a gate on it, so no customers will be able to get in that back lot area and into those other warehouses. Currently, right now, we have customers that drive through the full facility in harm's way, and many times if we have an 18-wheeler back there that's trying to back in or do a U-turn so he can get out, the new site plan facilitates that quick turnaround for any 18-wheeler, number one. Number two, no customers, wholesalers or anyone will have access to that backyard.
What about refuse management? How are you handling refuse management now, and how will you handle it if this were approved?
We have 4 dumpsters, but they're smaller sized dumpsters. And we have a pickup for garbage once a week, and we have recycling once a week. That plan would continue. I'm not sure if we would stay with the 4. It makes them easier to move around our property right now. But in the lower southwest half of the exit area there, there's a fenced refuse spot, which is where we're going to keep the recycled containers and garbage containers. We're going to maintain it right there.
If this application were approved, there are 2 areas that are identified as parking areas. Is that correct?
Yes.
And can you describe for the board what those 2 parking areas would be used for?
The northeast or north portion will be for employees. So they will come in the commercial entrance, come through the gate, and be able to park right there. I believe there's 25 to 26 spots there. The lower portion, which is south of the building, is for customers, for UPS pickup and handicapped. Handicapped is actually on both sides, I think.
And the number of parking spaces are adequate for your business needs, is that correct?
Yes.
Can you describe for the board what will be sold on a retail basis at the property and how that differs from today?
There's really not going to be any difference in the retail product that we sell. It'll still be the LSVs, new or reconditioned. It'll still be golf cars, new or reconditioned. The other vehicles that we sell to superintendents on golf courses. That's not really on a retail basis, though. That normally gets sold with a fleet, and it's all shipped. The superintendent does not come in and shop like a retail showroom. That'll all just be shipped right out to them, or we do our demonstrations out at the golf course.
You talked about a gate that would be at the northern access point. How will that gate be controlled?
We haven't finalized that now, but it will be controlled either by the inside or by, in other words, when a commercial truck pulls in, they'll have to stop at the gate, and it'll either be a microphone, telephone, or some type of buzz device that we can check them in, find out who it is, and let them through.
And one final question. There is a mezzanine in the interior floor plan, and one of the questions raised by the board professionals was what the use of that mezzanine would be if approved. Again, what would that be used for?
Storage of light parts and accessories.
Those are all the operational testimony issues that we needed to address, Mr. Chair. We're prepared. Mr. Lynch is prepared to answer any questions the board or the professionals have.
So you're not going to expand any of your retail? It's pretty much going to stay the same?
Yes.
You're just looking for a 12-month?
Well, what we're really looking to do is, right now on the reconditioned side, we only have storage for 25 vehicles. So when we get into our slow period between October and April, we can only build 25, because if we build 50, I've got to put 25 outside through the winter for 3, 4, 5 months. So when we get into that March, April, what I call the crunch, we have to get our rental fleet together, which could be 150 to 200 cars that have been outside for 5 months. All the new fleets that come in, which could be 3 or 4 fleets times 50, that's another 200 cars that come in from November through January. They sit in the yard as well in those winter months. I have no way of bringing them into the shop and then putting them in an interior spot to hold them until the courses need the delivery.
So looking at the drawings then, the 6 buildings on the left, that'll be for all the storage of
Yes.
the vehicles?
Yeah, I'd like to stage that. I'm coming for approval for 6 buildings, but we're definitely building the 4 at first, and then the other 2 would be when needed.
So it's going to be 4 first. Okay. And on a busy time of the year, how many customers would you have? Because I'm looking at the parking, just want to make sure that that's adequate.
Well, I can tell you currently, We work with about 3 to 4 spots, and they never have to park outside the gate. So I really do believe that 14 to 15 spots is very adequate for customers.
Mr. Chair.
Go ahead.
So, the 4 and possibly 6 small buildings to the west, are they pole barns or block buildings, or what are they proposed to be?
We haven't decided on the, and I'll defer to my architect with that, but we haven't decided whether we're going to do the metal buildings or whether we're going to do the block and then wood from there.
No work is going to be done there, they're just going to be stored there, they'd be like to be done and finished units?
That's it, it's cold storage.
Okay, is there going to be electric in there?
Yes, there will be electric in there. I believe so. Again, I'm going to defer, but yes.
And what's the front building? That's going to be steel or block or frame or?
Again, if I can wait,
The architect's coming up next, so he can describe the structure.
we have full renderings of it and everything for you, but it's brick. The front area fascia is going to be brick with a lot of glass, and that back area is going to be metal. It will be a metal building.
And when you store the vehicles, are they just on the ground and that's it? There's nothing, are they stacked? Or they're
No.
just one,
They'll be just on the ground. These will hold 105 cars roughly,
105 per building?
per building.
And those 105 per building are all currently stored outside.
Outside.
The other vehicles that you have that can go on the road 25 miles per hour and under, are those powered by electricity or
Yes,
gas?
they have to be by state law.
Okay.
So none of these vehicles have gas or anything like that?
Yes, we do have gas vehicles.
There's gas.
Our tournament fleet is gas vehicle, they are gas vehicles,
And where is that stored?
outside.
And the gas is also stored
Well,
outside?
you're saying the cars are stored inside, right?
No, the cars are stored outside.
Today.
Today, yes. In the future, they would be stored inside,
And there is a gas tank for refueling
yes,
on the site currently?
yes,
And you intend to keep that gas tank?
yes.
And the engineer will identify where it is and how it's being protected.
So how are they maintained currently? The gas, electric, how do you go about maintaining these cars?
I mean, as far as preventive maintenance,
Yeah, preventive maintenance, if they come in for repair, because you're going to have gas, oil, is there battery disposal? How does that work?
the battery disposal is recycled. Steve Gerard actually made a comment that we were said to be one of the larger recyclers in the county because of the amount of batteries that are recycled. We don't recycle them, we send them out. We put them on skids, wrap them in blister pack, and bring a trailer in, and they take them away.
And what about gas?
Gas,
gasoline,
oil.
How do we contain
Yeah.
oil when it gets changed? We have a tank, a waste tank outside the building. We dump all of the oil into that sink that goes right into the tank, and that's removed by a certified person.
And will that operation change in any way?
It might be modernized, but we will still do the same containment and the takeaway.
What about any vehicles that you deem that it's of no use anymore?
We dismantle and scrap.
Okay.
That takes a lot, though, to be honest with you. There's a lot of people that'll pay for junk.
Do you have any vehicles to deliver these carts, or do you outsource that?
We have 4 service vans, so we have technicians that go out on the road. If you owned an LSV and you had a problem with it, we would send a service tech out. If he couldn't diagnose it, he would bring it back for our mechanics.
And where do those vans stay on this updated plan?
We haven't, to be honest with you, I don't have a direct spot for them. Our thoughts, Steve Gerard and I were going over that, would be behind the proposed one-story, 17,000 square foot building. A lot of the repaired cars that are waiting to be delivered would be in the current masonry building that's there. So it would make sense to have the 4 vans stationed right next to that.
But just for transporting of fleets, you don't have vehicles to transport the fleets.
We have a tractor trailer and we have a tractor and trailer that does transport for the rental fleets.
That's something that's stored on the property, or that,
It is stored on the property. That would either be stored, depending on the time of year, if it was idle, and it does go idle for 2 or 3 months, we would probably put it in between the buildings or to the north or to the south of those buildings. Otherwise, while it's operating, it would be that's the northern portion, running east to west of the property.
and that wouldn't affect a tractor trailer coming into the lot with manipulating the turn?
No, because the tractor trailer would come in from Squonkam. There would be no, it's almost a large U-turn. There's an exit down in the southern part of the property. So the tractor trailer, there's plenty of room in there for the tractor trailer just to naturally go out the other exit.
Ms. Lynch, just to summarize, and then any other questions, of course, you'll answer. Your business operation essentially is going to remain exactly the same, except that the vehicles are now going to be stored in those rear 4 to 6 buildings as opposed to in your parking lot, which will allow you to spread out your repair time over a longer period of time and not squeeze them in during your rush time in the spring.
Well, what it allows is for that rush time in the spring to not be as much of a crunch as we have now. It'll give our customers better delivery. We'll be able to react much quicker because we'll already have their vehicles either prepped and delivered, or we'll have the reconditioned. If we have a customer that comes in right now and wants a reconditioned vehicle, we have to give them a 2 to 3 week lead time because we actually have to build it and recondition it. We can't keep up with that part of the business. This will just give us a better service for that person to say we could have it to you in 3 to 4 days.
Okay.
So the 17,000-foot building is going to be showroom, sales,
Showroom,
service?
showroom, parts. There's 3 or 4 desks in there for parts. Our normal office staff, mechanics, and then a parts room. That's 2 or 3 times the size we have now.
So what's the existing building going to be? The-
That's going to be storage of either overage of parts or large parts, tops, windshields, bodies, or storage of cars that are ready to be delivered that we don't want to have outside.
And then the maintenance will be in that one story.
The maintenance is in the 1 story.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I have a question.
Sure.
When you take the vehicles apart to scrap them, you have a designated area that you take them to break them down and recapture the oil and gasoline in them?
When I say break them down, what we're breaking down for is any of the aluminum that's in there. That's what we really break them down for. The gasoline is self-contained in a tank.
That goes with it, though?
No, that doesn't go with it when it's scrapped. That goes into that oil basin, catch basin that we have.
So the gas and the oil go into the same tank?
Can I defer to Steve Gerard?
We'll bring him up in a minute.
Okay. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I also have another question. On that brand-new building, is that sewer there and water, or is that going to be septic?
Sewer.
It's going to be sewer.
Sewer and public water?
That's correct.
Okay,
That's
Thank
our intention.
all right. That's all.
Okay. Any other questions?
Yes.
Go ahead, Tom.
Is there a new septic proposed, or are you going to use the existing?
Sewer.
Sewer.
Sanitary sewer.
Oh, you're connecting to a sewer line, I'm sorry, I missed that.
And Mr. Geller will describe how that's going to happen when he comes up.
Okay.
If we could bring Mr. Gerard up, he wasn't sworn in, Ron, but he has more of the technical testimony that was...
Okay, let's bring him up.
Steve is my general manager, and he's been,
Raise your right hand, please. You swear the testimony you give this evening will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, so help you God.
Yes.
Yes, yeah, please.
Stephen Gerard.
Thank you. Your witness.
Mr. Gerard, how are you affiliated with the Vic Gerard business?
I'm currently part owner of the property, and I'm general manager of the operation.
And you heard the question from Mr. O'Donnell regarding gas and oil. Can you describe how that's handled and if it's going to change, if this is approved, how is it changed?
It's only going to change as far as improvement. Oil is kept in a separate container. We also have a container for what we consider contaminated fuel, where oil and gas might be mixed. That's recycled separately from the regular oil.
And you have that pumped out of the premises?
Yes. It's in a surface tank right now. So we have two separate tanks, one just for,
One for gas,
regular
one for
oil,
oil?
yeah, and the other for what we call contaminated oil.
And you don't recycle any of it?
We personally don't recycle it, but we we pay to have a certified guy come in and he drains them and he recycles them or whatever I don't know what they do with contaminated fuel.
But okay, but they don't bring them back to you?
No,
That's-
no.
Okay. All right, thank you.
Stick around in case they have any other questions of you.
What about deliveries of the oil and the gas? How does that work?
We have a tanker truck that comes in to deliver bulk fuel, and oil we don't use large amounts of oil, so basically we're just getting quart cans as a rule. We don't have large drums or anything of oil.
And is there any other fluids, any other contaminant type, just besides the oil and gas, and then the
Very-
batteries, and then?
Very minimal amount of maybe like brake fluid or something like that. We have one model car that uses brake fluid. It's pretty minimal. Batteries, we don't handle any acid or anything like that. The only thing we add to it is distilled water. We have cleanup procedures if a battery is spilled or broken, to neutralize any acid. And service vans also have that, so that'll continue.
Okay.
Did any of those vehicles have antifreeze in them?
No.
No.
Well, check that, one of them does. Yeah, we have one water-cooled engine. But if we sell one of them a year, it's a lot, so it's pretty minimal.
Now, for your service vehicles, and then the tractor-trailer, how is that serviced?
Tractor-trailer goes out to Tractor Trailer Professional. We service our own vans. Once again, we recycle the oil that comes out of that. We do the minor repairs on the vans, anything major goes out.
Okay.
The gasoline that's stored on the property, is that in a tank above ground or under, or,
Above ground, 550-gallon tank.
and how's that secured? There's fence around that, or?
The
Bollards.
pollards, yeah, surrounding it. We would like to actually improve that, but that's what we have now.
Okay.
You have a wash-down area where you bring in golf carts from a rental, and how do you handle the water coming out of that?
We have a pit that we have drained out periodically. It filters the water off the top, that gets filtered again, but once again, the new facility, we want to get a more modern actual recycling thing, so it's only going to improve. That's
Thank
the
you.
plan.
Any other questions? Any questions from the professionals for these two?
Yeah, I have one.
Go ahead, Jack.
So the vehicles are gasoline or they're propane?
Gasoline, but the majority of them are electric powered. There's only a small percentage that are gas.
So they don't run on propane anymore? They used to be, they used to come with propane.
Nothing, we have ones on propane except our forklift.
Okay. So you're saying is the gasoline, is that mainly your slow vehicle? The ones you got permission to in
Low
08?
speed electric vehicles have to be electric by law.
Okay, they are,
Yeah.
okay.
The majority of our business is electric.
Okay. All right. Where, unless you want to defer to the engineer, where is your gas tank? Where is that? Located by the building? I don't see it on the site plan, so.
Right now, it's back farther to the left.
No, he's looking for the new,
Oh, the new one would be,
just for Michael.
we're planning on putting it to the left of the employee parking. So
Okay.
right under that 1,525-foot marker, somewhere in that vicinity. Should be
Okay.
ideal when the vehicle, the service vans come in, they can stop there, fuel up, and then,
All right, you have a dispensing area where you have to, is it electric pump, a manual pump? What do you-
electric pump.
Electric pump? Do you have a slab that you would put that on in case there's spills?
We will put it on a slab, we don't have that right now.
Okay, there's nothing shown, that would have to be something that would have to be shown on there. And obviously you have a spill kit with it.
Whatever required, well, I mean, everything we're doing, we want to improve and just make it better.
Well, I take it you have a permit for that,
Yeah, oh,
for
yeah.
dispensing?
Oh, the fuel?
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had it for 30
Yeah.
years
No.
or whatever, yeah.
Okay. All right, no further questions right now.
Okay,
Mr. Vice Chairman,
sure.
could you estimate the amount of deliveries, the number of trucks that you estimate per day entering and exiting the site?
It's certainly not consistent, but we do get UPS every day, twice a day, I should say, pick up once and a delivery once. A couple times a week, we'll get a FedEx truck. We get a common carrier, I would say, an average of twice a day.
And that's the one that brings in the golf carts?
It could be golf carts, it could be parts,
Okay. I'm sorry, you said that twice a day, or?
an average of twice a day.
Okay. In terms of any other kind of vehicles, like parts carrying vehicles or anything like that, that would be coming to the site?
What kind of vehicles?
Any kind of parts delivery?
Oh, yeah, we get a lot of, I
Trucks?
mean, the common carrier trucks could be parts.
Okay,
We probably get more deliveries of parts than we do cars.
okay, all right. I think that's about it. Thank you.
Thanks.
Chairman, I have another.
Yes.
Your deliveries, seems that your tractor-trailer does all your deliveries? You don't have other tractor-trailers that would deliver the cars elsewhere?
We deliver our own vehicles and majority of our sold vehicles. We do wholesale cars that go out of the state. Often they will come and pick them up, and they can be in any different type of
I mean, how many cars does your tractor-trailer hold? I mean,
20.
20? It just seems like a lot of, doesn't sound, for 200 cars, sounds like you don't have many deliveries, tractor-trailers.
Well, the vans, the 4 service vans can carry 4 or 5 each also.
Okay. Okay, thank you.
So what would be the average number of vehicles that would be delivered?
An average golf course fleet is about 60 cars, but they're at the golf course most of the time, except when the fleet is being replaced. So they're only really delivered once, and then picked up once. And typically, when they're picked up, we're delivering the new ones at the same time. If there's a repair that they can't complete on site, which we always try to fix everything on site, then they'll come back with our van, which are coming back and forth anyway, so.
Do any of the golf courses just, like, maybe in the winter, they're going to close or something, and they say just, we want all the golf carts out of the golf course?
We have a couple of accounts that don't have room for all of their carts inside their buildings, so we do store a small amount of their cars in our yard now. So once again, they'd be in the storage building.
Okay. All right. Any other questions?
You manufacture anything, or is it just as assembling and disassembling and repairing?
No manufacturing, I guess you would call it assembling. There's a small amount of assembling, but yeah, no manufacturing.
Okay,
All right. If there's no other questions, we'll go to the next
Mr.
witness.
O'Neill?
Thank you.
Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill, you've introduced yourself as an architect. Would you place your credentials on the record, please?
I've been licensed in the state of New Jersey since 1988. I have a bachelor's and master's degrees in architecture from the University of Pennsylvania. I also have a master's degree in planning from the University of Pennsylvania. Excuse me. My firm has been operating since 1988 out of Red Bank and a little bit out of Middletown. I've done numerous projects throughout the county. I've not been before this board, although I've been before numerous boards throughout the county in Little Silver, Red Bank, Middletown, Colts Neck, all over the county. I'm also a professor at Brookdale Community College. I had the architecture program there and have for the last 29 years.
Good. We accept your credentials. Thank you.
And Mr.
Oh, that would be wonderful, thank you.
And Mr. O'Neill, you have certain exhibits that we're going to mark, or they've been marked already?
I think we need to mark them.
Okay.
Next mark is A14, Sal.
And Mr. O'Neill, while you're marking that, would you identify what A14 is?
A14 would be a digital rendering of the building in perspective and color.
Oh, he took his job.
Oh, I'm sorry.
And while everybody's together, let's mark them all, okay, Ed, so we don't have to...
The other one would be, again, additional views that are close-ups, which would be A15.
Thanks. And you'll see there's also a rendering that's on the screen, Ed.
Yes.
And that rendering was prepared by your office, I assume?
Yes, it was.
All right, would you just, you want to start with the front of the building?
Sure. This is, what's on screen would be the front of the building facing Squonkam Road. And as you can see here, this is a kind of a perspective of it. The large window opens up onto the showroom. The pitched roofs somewhat emulate some of the traditional agricultural buildings in the region. The roof would be a standing seam metal roof. The facade in the front is all brick veneer. Somebody had asked before what the construction would be. It would be a steel construction building. In code parlance, it would be a 2C building, so it would be non-combustible, given its size. It's, again, 17,536 square feet. It's all on one level. There is a mezzanine in one section, which, again, as Mr. Lynch testified, is for part storage, small parts. There's lots of small parts that get lost and get misplaced all the time, so there's a segregated area for that. So under the building code, that's not really considered square footage because it's ancillary to the parts department, which is right below it. There are a number of different elements on the roof, and there to bring light into the middle of the building, and also to let ventilation out. So the building is fairly wide, so rather than it being dark and gloomy and artificially lit, we thought that from the standpoint of sustainability, it'll let light and air in, and therefore reduce some of the utility costs on the building. And also, again, I think bring light into different areas of the building to enhance the showroom and the golf carts and the places where the people are working, particularly the mechanics.
Any signage on that building?
No. No, there's one ground sign that is proposed out front.
Oh, okay, and then A15?
A15 shows, again, if you go to one of the side elevations, you can see the building is long, and it's really long because it needs to be. The way the golf cart maintenance and things work is they tend to be like in a conga line. So they move through, and so the building is long in the back. What we've done to try to break up the building in its mass is to add those dormer elements, which are really the light and ventilator systems. So whereas your ordinance calls for the roof to have breaks in it, that roughly 150 feet is broken up instead with the dormers and changes in material. So the base of the building is a decorative concrete block, the siding is a horizontal metal, and then the roof material, which is also metal, is a standing seam vertical metal, so there'll be differentiations in material to break down the scale. Also, the shadow lines caused by the dormers as well as the large overhangs, which will be larger than normal because it's the south-facing side of the building, so we don't have a lot of solar gain. So that'll create more shadow line, again, breaking the mass of the building up, which I think is the intention of the ordinance to have setbacks and breaks.
With that thought in mind, I'd like to ask our planner, we've had large buildings in here before, and I think there's a requirement every 50, 75 feet, you need to jut in or break out or something just to keep things.
Every
Yes.
75 feet, you we need a 3-foot either recess or a breakout.
Right, and we're asking for a design waiver from that, given the nature of the type of building it is and the function of the building. And what we've tried to do is in areas where they are not in the repair and storage areas, we've created indents. So if you notice in this image here, the front entry is inset 6 feet. If you notice that the light monitors at the top, again, break up the roof as opposed to creating different roof heights, which really don't really make any functional sense to the building. And then if you go to the other side elevation, which is the north side, we've done the same thing, but you have to remember when you look at the site plan, this side of the building is virtually invisible because you have the fire academy next door and you have a wall of evergreen trees that are probably 25 feet tall and run the entire length of the site. And the building, if you go to the plan, you can see how the building has a jut out to the north there. So basically, if you just kind of try to do a sight line from Squonkam Road and you look at that tree line, it's impossible to see that side of the building at all. The other side of the building, we tend to do some significant landscaping between the parking area and the sidewalk and the building. That'll further break up the building to some extent. To some extent. So I think that that will be more than adequate to meet the intent of the ordinance, which is to break really the scale of the building. That's really what, in architectonic terms, is the desired effect of 3-foot setbacks and changing roof heights.
I agree with that, but I'm wondering if you can still break the facade by, change in material or something like that, because the ordinance does recommend
Well,
using
again,
that kind of technique.
We have done that. If you go back to the side elevations, and I can't really, I'll show you, I'll just kind of describe it from that as opposed to trying to see this. If you look at the side elevation, it's a little hard to see because of the scale of the drawing, but in between the two bay doors, see again, the base for a 4-foot height is actually masonry. And then the siding above it runs in one color, and then the siding runs in a band connecting the windows across. And then the roof material, which is the same material but in a completely different configuration, will also be a different color. So we've used that to break up the materials. And if you look at the back elevation, which I realize is not really the same issue, we've gone to the extent of adding the roof skirt, and again, changing the two different colors to again, try to break up the building. We were very mindful in designing the building about the scale of it, because it's a large building. It is a large building. But again, that's the nature of what that type of building is.
Mr. Hill, we understand that way. I think what they're trying to eliminate is the long, straight building. Even if you did a cutout, just come out for a couple of feet and then went back in, it breaks up that long
Monotonous.
building. I think that's what she's trying to say.
Right, but if you go to the floor plan, let me just kind of address that, because I think the floor plan really shows how it functions. If you look at the, put my eyeglasses on.
I understand, but you could do something on the exterior of the building that doesn't reflect interior. You follow what I'm saying?
Sure.
If you did a step out every 75 or 100 feet, where you just come out with the block, could be a couple of feet long, and then go back in. It just
You
breaks
could.
up that long, continuous, monotonous look of the building.
Well, again, I think you could definitely do that, no question. I just don't see the purpose of it, frankly, because it's,
Like I said, we want to keep the ordinance.
it's an ordinance
It's an
thing.
ordinance, and we'd like to keep it that way.
I guess it would be something decorative, because it
Yeah.
would certainly have no function.
Well,
Yeah.
we discussed,
So it's very long.
we had a prep meeting before tonight, and Mr. O'Neill was away, and we did discuss the possibility that the board might want some breakup of that long monolithic wall, and the applicant would certainly agree to do it if the board wants it.
Okay.
And we would just obviously condition it upon your professionals signing off on it.
Yeah, it sounds like we would want something like that.
And again, I have no problem, again, I wasn't party to the meeting, I apologize, but if my client is more than willing to, I'm certainly willing to
Yeah, and it would
make
just be
those.
something, as Mr. Mallon indicated, that comes out. It wouldn't affect the interior, just something to
Right.
bump it out to
Exactly.
break
Right.
up.
Exactly.
Yeah, well,
Yeah, because I think that's important
Okay.
to note.
Is that okay? It's okay. Okay.
And that's all the architectural testimony we have.
All right.
unless you have questions.
Mr. West?
Go
I
ahead.
have a question. In terms of the buildings at the back that are going to be used for storage, any description of that? Because I don't think we have any kind of,
There we go.
Yeah.
Well, again, there's two other buildings. This is the building actually that exists. So this is the existing building, it's 4,500 square feet. What we are proposing is to put a new skin onto the building, so that it's in the same palette as the main building. So it has actually a decorative brick veneer now, and we would keep that at the base, and then we would put metal siding over that, and then a metal roof. The openings that you see are all existing, so we wouldn't be changing them.
And then the 6 rear buildings?
The 6 rear buildings are, there you go, right here. This is one, and they're all the same. Again, they're about 700 feet from Squonkam Road, behind the other 2 buildings. So they're not going to be visible unless you're in the yard. But these are, again, utility buildings, so we have pitched roofs on them. The pitched roofs are similar to the pitched roofs on the other buildings. They'll be metal. The siding, we will probably do metal also. That'll be similar. And again, there's garage doors openings, but there's no reason to have windows. Actually, windows don't really make a whole heck of a lot of sense. Certainly not openings, because you don't want the dust blowing in. That's the whole reason for having them in a warehouse that's fairly clean. There was also a question about whether there'd be electrical in the building. Again, there would have to be enough electrical to certainly to light it. That would be by building code.
But no men's room, ladies' room, offices?
No, nothing but,
No heat?
no, it's just a big covered, it's a garage.
How high are those buildings?
I can't see the note on the left-hand side.
I don't see it.
15 feet
15
to the
feet
center
high?
line of the gable,
That's okay.
which I believe, given the setbacks, meets the ordinance.
Oh, that's okay. Now, as far as the garage doors, those are large enough so that the carts can go in? What happens if a truck has to go in and drop the cart off?
No, they're a larger garage door, but again, you have to remember, a cart is very small.
Yeah.
So, but that's a regular, I think it's an 8 by 10 foot garage door.
10 I guess?
I think that one is 8 by 10
Really?
feet.
And for the proposed building, the one that's 17,000 feet, that's going to be
It's the same thing.
same thing?
They might be 12 feet wide, I believe.
Okay.
But again, they're both there for the carts. You could drive a vehicle in, like one of the vans or something like that.
Okay. Any other questions from the board? No?
Mr. Vice Chair? So just to go back to the point, as of now, the applicant is going to seek a waiver on the facade breakup, or we're going to agree to comply to that?
For the front building, the 2 sides, we would agree to comply.
Agree to comply. And another thing, I think one of the requirements is to provide roof line offset measuring along 75 feet width. And I know you did explain that there are dormer windows, but I know it's one of the requirements of the variance. So I just want to understand, are you seeking a variance, or are you going to try and?
That's a more difficult thing to adhere to because of the geometries of the building. So
That would be a variance?
my advice to my client would be to seek the waiver, but it's my client's final.
And
because-
we're seeking that relief, and we tried to mitigate it with those dormers.
Okay.
I mean, there are 12 of them, and they're set far less than 50 feet apart.
Yeah. They need one
So if we took the dormers off, I'd see your point. With the dormers, I think the dormers mitigate the issue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
So, I didn't quite understand what we were just talking about. We're talking about breaks in the roof line, is that what?
Yes, there are two requirements. One is for the facade, which was the 3 feet depth break every 75 feet.
Right.
The applicant has agreed to comply to that. Another requirement of the variance is you have to provide roof line offsets, like some change in the breaks in the roof every 75 feet length. And I believe they're seeking a variance for that, because that is more a requirement.
But you're saying the dormers are doing the same thing?
Yes. yes.
Aesthetically, I'm saying.
In my
they're
experience,
cheap.
I do agree with that. The dormers are providing the breaks enough for
Right, you, Jack?
facade.
Thank you.
Okay.
No.
No, the back
No.
building won't do it, we'll just leave it.
Anything else?
Yes. Also, the back building, because they're not meeting the requirement, the facade requirement, they would need a variance.
Okay.
But again, I do tend to agree with the expert that since the building is set back and it's more of a storage use, again, it's up to board's decision, but it's not required to provide a facade.
All right. Any other questions? Okay,
Thank you.
Mr. O'Neill, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Geller? And
I think we'll do it all at once.
before we introduce Mr. Geller, Scott Kennel's here, who's our traffic expert. There's no change in business operation, as you heard through the testimony, but he's here if you have traffic questions, and if you need us to bring him on at the conclusion, we'll be glad to bring him on to address any traffic questions you have.
Want to do that, or you want to bring him up first?
It's up to you.
Well, he'll be here, so if you decide you need to hear
All
from
right,
him.
yeah, we'll let Mike go
I go
first.
by there every day, there's
Okay.
nothing going on.
We're going to mark some more exhibits.
Yeah, but, I think he's gonna have this one. 16.
These are the three that have been marked. We have large and then reduced versions. These are the ones we're going to mark. And then I'll hand the rest out. Right.
A16?
No, there's three separate. So, Mike, identify what A16 is, please.
Okay. A16 is an aerial image showing the existing site and the surrounding areas. Don't go away, Tom. Keep you busy today. Okay, A17 is the next one?
That's A16.
A17 is a color rendering depicting the vicinity and the site in color, and A18 is, don't go away. Sorry. Keep you busy. A18 is simply a site layout color rendering which shows it a little bit larger, and I have individual copies for each of the board members.
Mike, before you start, you could just put your credentials on the record so we can get that out of the way.
Give me a second here.
And A18 is the last one.
Wow, you're busy today. Thank you.
Okay, now, Mike, before you testify, we're seeking to have you qualified as both a professional engineer and planner in the state of New Jersey. Would you place your credentials on the record, please?
Yes, I have 42 years of experience. I'm a professional engineer since 1980, a professional planner in the state of New Jersey since 1983. I'm also a certified municipal engineer. I have served municipal boards and planning boards and zoning boards as engineer and planner, as well as testified before boards throughout the state as a professional engineer and a professional planner. I've been before this board many times, and I used to be the Howell engineer in the early 1980s, about 35 years ago. I hate to mention the time, but it's been a long time.
Thank you, Mike.
First, I'd like to describe the existing site. I'm going to be referring to A16, which depicts the existing site. It's a little dark. I think the rendering you have reduced in size might be a little better, actually. The site is known as Block 49, Lot 8.01, has an address of 281 Squonkam Road. This site is located on the westerly side of Squonkam Road. Squonkam Road is a Monmouth County highway, Route 547 and 524. It's about 1,500 feet north of the intersection with Squonkam Yellowbrook Road. This property has an area of 16.9 acres. It is in the SED, the Special Economic Development Zone, which has a requirement of 120,000 square feet, which is a little bit under 3 acres. The lot frontage is 270 feet, has a depth, it goes back all the way to Marshbog Brook. The depth exceeds 1,500 feet. The westerly property line of the property is the Marshbog Brook, which is a C1 stream and requires a riparian buffer of 300 feet. And within that 300-foot buffer on this, it's depicted on the renderings, is a 300-foot buffer. In that area, there is a approximate Zone A flood area, and there's also freshwater wetlands that have been delineated with its 150-foot buffer, and all that is situated within the 300-foot riparian buffer. The freshwater wetlands were actually delineated by Brinkerhoff Environmental, and an LOI was issued by the DEP on March 21st of this year.
So, excuse me, Mike, that would be that yellow line?
Yes, the yellow line, and it's dimension 300 feet. It's small, but that dimension is 300 feet. So all the existing improvements on the site are outside the 300-foot buffer, and everything that's proposed by any site plan here is outside that 300-foot buffer.
So it'd be to the right?
To the right on the
of the
renderings.
buffer, okay.
And that wetlands is all inside of that same buffer?
Yes,
So everything east of that yellow 300-foot buffer is usable property?
yes, yes. I would point out, too, that there's currently a Manasquan River Regional Sewer Authority interceptor that is within that 300-foot buffer. That's existing, but that's not going to be disturbed, obviously.
Is that the black dotted line?
Yes, it's the width, it's a 30-foot wide easement, and that's an existing sewer easement that's been there for over 30 years. That's the only improvements within that buffer area. Everything else is outside. The property is situated in the SED zone, as I mentioned. I would point out that all the adjacent properties are also in the SED zone, with the exception of the property immediately across the street, Squonkam Road there. That's an ARE6 zone. It's NJDEP-owned conservation lands. So that'll probably never be developed, but that's the only non-SED zoned property in the area.
What's to the north and the south?
Okay, I'm going to get there in a
Okay.
minute. I will get there right now, then.
Okay.
To the north is the firehouse on Lot 9. That's the triangular lot to the immediate north of us. That's the Squonkam Fire Company. One lot to the north of that is the Howell Athletic Center. It has the ice arena. That's on Lot 10. That has parking right along Squonkam Road there. And there's also a sanitary sewer that runs from the Manasquan Interceptor along the southerly line of that site up to Squonkam Road, just outside the roadway. As I said, to the east across Squonkam Road is the DEP property on Lot 8 in Block 48. To the south of the property, I was going to get to this afterwards, but there was a lot that was subdivided. It was the former Gerard resident on Lot 8.02. That's a 2.77 acre property that was subdivided in 1992 and approved by this board as part of a raspberry case because you're reducing the size of the Gerard site, which was a non-conforming use at the time. So there was an approval granted in 1992 for the creation of that lot. That lot is currently mixed use. It has a large storage building that is leased out for the storage by individuals of collector cars. Also has a masonry garage in the rear portion of that site that an excavator stores his backhoe and equipment in. And there's a structure in the front that used to be the residence that has the offices of the owner, and there might be a residential unit or apartment that the excavator, I believe, lives in. To the further south is Lot 7 in Block 49, and that has a 12,000 square foot storage building that is being used by a business. I think it's a glass guy, and there's an abandoned, vacant, former residence to the front portion of that site. To the west of the property are properties across Marshbog Brook. There's the green site that has the egg, used to be an egg farm, but now they mostly manufacture or assemble trailers on that site. That's in the SED zone. And then to the north of that is a residence that's also in the SED zone. So that's the area of the site. Just generally speaking about Squonkam Road, if you're familiar from Squonkam Yellowbrook Road going north towards Farmingdale, that area has been a mix of residential and non-residential for a long time, and slowly over the past few years, I've noticed there have been a lot more businesses either reusing former residences or tearing the residences down and rebuilding there. The Monmouth Feed Supply has been there for a long time, so it's definitely developing a commercial flavor as the area lends itself. The Vic Gerard use itself, I like to describe that. That's been, as I think Mr. Lynch had said, it's been at this site, the Vic Gerard Golf Course site, has been there since 1968. The business itself started in Asbury Park in 1958, but it's been at this site since 1968. And as described, they sell and repair golf cars as well as the low-speed vehicles. Parts and accessories are sold there. They service golf cars for golf courses, municipalities. They do it for apartment complexes that have the need for these kinds of vehicles. Farmers sometimes purchase these as well as individuals. As Mr. Lynch said, there's 23 employees. That number's been bouncing around, but I think 23 is the number that has been testified to, and that's the number of employees. The typical commercial deliveries were described. They're UPS trucks or FedEx trucks for the daily types of small deliveries, and there are also tractor-trailer deliveries as well. The existing site has the cars are dropped off and picked up by company tractor-trailers that are access the site currently. One of the problems they've been having with this site is if you look at the existing, it's on the board, the actual site has a single driveway, and once a vehicle gets to the back, it's a little bit difficult to maneuver. You can see all the golf cars and things that are starred all over. It's a little difficult to maneuver those tractor trailers, and that's one of the reasons that they're doing this plan to enhance the property. A second problem they have is because the building that is the main building of the operation is set back from the road, a lot of the customers and visitors can just wander into the yard, and it's kind of an uncontrolled condition that's also going to be corrected by the proposed site plan. The areas of the current buildings, the main building, that was the masonry building that was described, is 4,500 square feet. There are 3 different canvas structures. The front showroom that was previously described is about 2,744 square feet. To the rear of the main building, there's another canvas structure that is used for the storage of their parts, and that's another 3,168 square feet. And to the south of that is another canvas structure of equal size, also for storage. That's 3,168 square feet. And the coop along the northerly portion of the property, when you add up all of the different parts of it, occupies 8,262 square feet. It's not very high. It's probably about 12 feet in the front, and it slants down to about 6 feet in the rear. It's a converted coop, and it's been used for storage over the years, with the very easterly portion being used for their detailing operation. Most of the cars, as you can see on the aerial, are stored outside. And there are 2 above-ground storage tanks. They show on the existing conditions map. They are right south of the building. That's just south of the coop. There's a gas tank, and just south of that, there's another, it says gas, that's actually a diesel tank, and that third tank that's marked diesel is not there any longer. That was there at the time of the survey. That's been decommissioned and removed. So there are 2 above-ground tanks. Both are 550 gallons, and there's also dispenser pumps on top of the tanks.
Question, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
If these tanks are going to be moved or reassigned or whatever, if you're going to pave all that, you going to do any kind of investigation for pollution or spillage at this point?
Well, they've been above-ground tanks, so any spillages would be obvious because they're above ground. You have to do those investigations for underground storage tanks.
But I mean, at this point, if something's been spilled there for 49 years, it could turn into something. Would you want to certify that you're good before you pave over it?
Well, obviously, the owners can do that when they remove it, but I believe they would know if there had been a spill, because, again, it's above ground. So they can investigate the soil as part of it.
You'd be smart, wouldn't you?
Sure. I mean, above ground, the thing about above ground,
At least with the diesel.
yeah.
At least with the diesel.
I'm just saying that with above-ground tanks, any spillage is obvious because it's above ground, but it can be done, and
But if you spill a little bit repeatedly, and if you spill a pint, you can't pick it up, and it adds up. I'm just saying, if you were going to pave that, it would be smart at this point in time. It's my opinion. I'm not an environmental guy. But if I were going to pave that, I'd want to know it was clean underneath.
as a condition that, to the relocation, that can be done.
Jack?
We can make it a condition, they can,
I mean,
Yeah.
is it a good, if
They
it's a
can
stupid
say it.
idea, feel free to say so.
no.
No, we'll do
I
it.
think it protects the applicant, too.
I think it's a good idea. If it's my property and I were going to seal it over with asphalt, I'd like to know that it's not a situation.
Got it. We'll do that, Mr. Porsche. The total area of the existing buildings then is 22,402 square feet. Let's see, I talked about the single access. There are currently 3 parking spaces that customers park at. Otherwise, the employees park in front of the fence in a gravel area on the site, just to the right of the driveway, and that will all be reorganized with the proposed site plan. So again, the problems with the existing site, it's not ideal for the circulation of the truck traffic, the way the site's configured and utilized currently, and also the location of the main building is so far in the site that customers kind of get lost when they go in. This site is currently on well and septic, and it will be proposed on sanitary sewer connection, which I'll explain in a minute, and on-site water will be extended from the arena, the ice arena, southerly to this property. In 1992, the board granted a minor subdivision approval, as I indicated, that created Lot 802 to the south. At the time, that was the residence of the Gerards. It remained that way until they sold it to another a user when they relocated to Florida. The subdivision created a 2.77 acre lot that created Lot 8.02. There had been and still is a paved connecting way between those two uses. That paved driveway will be removed as part of this site plan. Back in 2008, you also heard that there was a use variance granted for the sale of the low-speed vehicles, and that's not being changed. That use will continue, and all the conditions of that approval will be adhered to as well. The proposed application is every building on the site that I described would be removed, except for the one 4,500 square foot building. I'm referring now to A17, which shows the proposed site on the... A18 is probably a little bit easier to see. The 4,500 square foot brown building is to remain. That's the only existing building that will remain. And the proposed building would be a 17,356 square foot building, the front building that Mr. O'Neill described in detail. That would be set back at the 60-foot setback line from Squonkam Road. And that building would house the new showroom. That means that canvas structure is gone. It would house the offices and the reception and parts counters, the mechanic and repair areas, the detailing area, and the parts inventory would all be inside one building, which in and of itself lends itself to a more efficient operation instead of things being spread out all over the place. The 4,500 square foot, again, would be for part storage and some vehicle storage. And then there's the proposed 6 buildings in the back that are each 4,400 square feet. 4 are proposed to be built with this site plan, 2 are for a future. One of your comments, board professionals' comments, is that's why they're showed in dash, because they are proposed for future construction. The proposed site is not so much an expansion of the use or business, but more a general modernization of the site and a reorganization of the site so it functions better and more efficiently, and it would also enhance the company's operation by being more efficient. As a result of the site plan, too, there will be the appearance of the property would be greatly enhanced. There will be landscaping. There's not currently any landscaping. There will be proposed stormwater management. There are 2 stormwater basins proposed, one in the front area. The site slopes in 2 different directions. Part of it flows to the back, part flows to the front, so there's 2 different stormwater management basins that are proposed to manage each of that water. The front basin would connect to the county storm system in Squonkam Road. The back basin would overflow in the direction of Marshbog Brook. The areas of the buildings that are proposed are 17,356. About 2,160 square feet of that is considered retail. In that, I included the showroom, and the parts service counter is 2,106 square feet, 160 square feet. The proposed location of the building to the front of the site allows for the fencing of the the entire property, and that way only the customer access and parking area and the driveway on the southerly side are open. All other areas are then fenced off, so that provides the security that the site needs and still being accessible for customers to access the southerly portion of the building.
So where is that fence going to be again?
Fence starts at the northeasterly corner of the building,
Okay,
goes to the northerly property line. That's a decorative metal fence.
okay.
And then it runs the northerly property line to the rear part of the proposed buildings, comes across, and then comes across the southerly portion of the property, and then connects to the existing building, and then there's a fence between the existing building and the proposed building.
So that fence is before the 2 proposed buildings that are closer to the basin? On
Yes,
the-
those buildings are accessible without, yes.
To the left. Did we go
This
further
buil-
to the left? So the fence is going to come down right by the dashed?
The black
Yep.
line on the rendering is the fence, then it follows along, then it comes along the front of the proposed future buildings, and then along the northerly line, and then down to the northwest corner of the front,
So
17,000 square
Why
feet.
would you put the fence, and then would you have to take the fence down to put those other 2 proposed buildings?
Well, we didn't exactly know when that was going to be proposed. I mean, the fence could be built at any time, or it was proposed to be at the front where those buildings are not yet built yet.
Okay.
It can be relocated later.
So then a customer coming in will have to get buzzed in, or does that fence be open during
No, a
business
customer
hours?
can drive in the southerly driveway. I was going to get to that in a minute. Use the southerly driveway, pull into the parking spaces on the south side of the building. The only person that needs to be buzzed in is a delivery truck that could wait at that northerly driveway, which is a one-way entrance, and would get buzzed in and then can access and circulate. There was a comment about the largeness of the center area between the rear storage buildings and the front buildings. That's to allow the circulation necessary for the trucks to enter and exit to the southerly driveway and then exit onto Squonkam Road. Just to finish that thought, the access to the site would be, there's a one-way access drive, 24 feet in width along the northerly property line. The 25 employee parking spaces face the northerly property line where the fire company is. Mr. O'Neill accurately pointed out that there's a row of evergreens already there on the fire company site. And then there's a second driveway that's 40 feet wide. That's to accommodate the truck movements and 2-way traffic. and that would be the only exit from the site onto Squonkam Road. That would also serve as access to the customer area. There's some events where customers would get their vehicle, like if they're picking up one cart, there's this little circulation aisle for that purpose. Otherwise, everything else, as I said, is fenced off.
So then you have, on the north entrance will be for trucks only.
Trucks and employees.
Employees. So then the truck goes around and then goes out, I'll say the main entrance then, where you're going to have people coming in, customers coming in.
You mean on this driveway?
Yeah.
That's a 40-foot, that's like a road almost. That's 40 feet in width.
40 feet, okay.
Sal, I have a question on the, seeing that I'm the draftsman in the resolution. In order to avoid any future complication or additional site visits and possibly a return to the board, would the applicant be agreeable to relocating the fence from its present position at the rear of the building to encompass the 2 future buildings as well?
Yes.
That's fine.
All right, we'll put that in the resolution. Thank you.
To continue, there's the 2 above-ground storage tanks. They're currently in an area that are now going to be paved yard area that they will be testing the soil. They'll remove those tanks. They'll either replace them or relocate them to along the northerly property line. As recommended, they will be on a concrete slab, and they'll be brought to code. So if it's a 550-gallon tank, if it requires a containment area, it will have a containment area for spills. It'll have a modern pump, but it'll be relocated, 1 diesel and 1 gas, and that would be along the northerly property line adjacent to the edge of that pavement on concrete slabs.
And the details of that area and the slabs, et cetera, will be provided to the board and its professionals?
Yes. Let me talk about the minimum parking requirements because it's been cited on both of your professionals' reports as not being compliant. In this particular use, we utilized the history of the use and the business. So we used the number of employees as a guide to provide the number of parking spaces. You heard that there were 23 employees. There's 25 along the northerly property line. And you didn't hear a specific number, but when we had our preparation meetings, I was told that there would be a maximum probably of 10 customers, retail customers, per day. We have 14 spaces on the southerly side for a total of 39 spaces. One of the board reports cites a need for 76 spaces, and part of that, if you remember the floor plan of the building had 12 service bays. Well, there's only 5 mechanics, but sometimes the carts remain in the bays for extended time. In your ordinance, service bays are treated as if they're service stations or repair garages, and the rate of parking requirement is 4 spaces per bay. So when you show 12 bays on an architectural plan, even if they're golf cart bays versus auto bays at a Jiffy Lube or a car service facility, you don't get that kind of traffic or waiting or vehicles needing to be stacked and queued. So the 12 spaces, the 4 bays per space is not an accurate rate. There's a provision in your ordinance that 188-107C1 of your ordinance addresses that in parking and says where the minimum parking requirements are not set forth for a specific use in this schedule, the number of required spaces shall be determined by the reviewing agency at the time at which an application for development is submitted. And based on that provision, we assert, and based on the testimony of the operators of the site, that the 39 spaces proposed are more than sufficient for this business. And you really don't have to rely on the breakdown of how much retail, how much office, how much service bays. The 39 spaces is sufficient.
And
So-
currently, there's only 3 customer spaces on site.
Yes, and Mr. Lynch testified that they were typically sufficient for customers. So even though you have 10 per day, they're queued and staggered over the course of a day. In this case, we have 14 spaces dedicated for that use, and I think it's sufficient. I addressed stormwater runoff. The proposed site plan will eliminate the current septic system. As I testified, there's a sewer line within a township easement. An easement was dedicated to the township of Howell along the southerly property line of Lot 10, and there's a manhole to which a connection is proposed. The sanitary sewer will run northerly, strike that, will run easterly along the northerly property line, and a service connection would be provided for the proposed building. I do want to mention that there was a sanitary sewer shown on the plan crossing into the southerly undeveloped portion of the site. After I had a meeting with Mr. Nunziato, and he's the sewer director of the town, it was decided that we were going to strike that proposal from our plan and only do the connection that's required for the proposed building. Anything in the future will be deferred to the future. So I just wanted to make that clear on the resolution, that that's being stricken.
Where is the existing septic?
The existing, it's on the existing conditions plan.
Right there.
I believe it's, let me check. There it is. Here. Thank you. It's just south of the existing building. It's where that circulation driveway is going to be.
Okay. So that will be removed, or how is that going to
It'll
happen?
be decommissioned in accordance with health department requirements. They allow for all the tanks to be pumped, and they do allow for the burying of the dry material on site. That's an allowed practice.
Is that getting paved on?
Part of it might be paved and part of it might be grassed island, but it's being removed. So the system will be removed and decommissioned. It won't be left in place.
That sewer in the back, it makes more sense for you to go back and tie in all the way in that northwest corner rather than to go straight north and intercept that other line?
We analyzed it 3 different ways, and the thing happened when they ran the sewer to Squonkam Road, it's very shallow there. So when you start running the sewer southerly on Squonkam Road, the road is going down and the sewer's coming up, so it doesn't have enough cover.
I thought you'd have the exact opposite problem. It'd be like 2 miles deep in the back, but it's not. It's shallow.
Well, it was deep in the back, but by the time it got up to Squonkam Road, it was shallow.
Right.
So it really doesn't have much purpose for extension from there. That's why we're connecting to the point there.
Now, there going to be manholes on your property, or is it all going to be treated like lateral?
No, there'll be a manhole, but it will be treated like a connection, not an extension.
No, I mean on your property. Is it all, you're going to have manholes on your property?
Yes.
Did I see that?
It's on the utility plan. It'll be on sheet 5, I believe. Yeah, we connect to a manhole, and we come south to a manhole, and we go north to a manhole, and then north to a manhole near Squonkam Road, and we make a connection there. So there are a couple of manholes on the property.
Oh, I see.
Michael, those would be private though, correct?
They would be private, but there will be an easement that's provided, the township requires an easement be provided to the utility department.
Now, this is just for your use. How big would that line be?
The line's going to be 8 inches,
Really?
yes. The size allows the slope to be gradual, that allows for better service, but we've made it 8 inches.
Seems like a long way for 8 inch for one building. Is that all right, Jack?
It meets regulations,
Yeah,
the
we could-
alternative is to be on septic, and they don't want to.
I mean, the
Or put a-
alternative, if we
or put a
find
pump
it's going
in.
to be a smaller size, it would have to be steeper, we'd have to look at that, but we didn't
I'm
do
just
that.
thinking, what's going to lay around and what's going to actually go septic from laying around. Is that not an issue, Jack?
Well, it's done at minimum slope, which maintains 2 feet per second.
What's
No,
that, 4
no
times,
different
right?
than, no different than a dead-end line.
2 feet, it's 2%. No, it's 0.0.
0.4.
2 feet per second is a requirement for cleansing velocity.
Oh. It seems like a big pipe to me
Yeah, it is.
to handle 2 bathrooms.
Yeah. Well, we'll take a closer that.
Just go with Jack, let's go with me. I'm just asking.
No, we're going to take a closer look at that when we go to the Howell Township MUD. We have a preliminary approval. We have to go back to them for tentative, so those details will be kicked out at that point. They are subject to change, but nothing that affects the site plan, if you know what I mean. The well is currently located in the front yard area near the old residential property, and that will be abandoned. It's on the plan, it's on sheet 2. And there will be an extension from the existing limit of the water main that was done for the ice arena. I think the fire company's already connected. It'll be connected, ran down to the site. There'll be a fire hydrant proposed and a service to the building. The site is proposed to be landscaped with the trees you see on the rendering. There's also landscaping proposed around the proposed detention basin in the front, and there are shade trees, street trees along Squonkam Road. There's been a comment from your board planner regarding the location of those trees in the right-of-way. They can be moved back closer to the right-of-way line. That right-of-way line's 40 feet from center line. That was dedicated back when the minor subdivision was done, so those trees can be set back a little further.
Sherry, any comments with that?
Yeah, I did ask about that. So if they could be moved closer to their property line, that would be better. What about, are you going to go over the other
Yes.
landscape items?
Yes. One of the other landscape comments had to do with the landscaping along the basin doesn't provide an evergreen shading to the proposed parking. And we were figuring that we could revise a number of those species to be evergreen to provide the screening that would be desirable from Squonkam Road to the parking area.
Okay.
That will be done. There are also, we agree in general to comply with all the landscaping and woodlands management comments in the CME report of April 18th. That's items 7F to 7O. And we also understand, because the applicant is not able to plant a sufficient number of trees to offset the proposed clearing, the township has a formula for the calculation of the tree fund and the number of trees required. The applicant does understand that there's an amount that has to be contributed to the tree fund, and that is to be resolved with the township certified tree expert, but there is a calculation on our plan that we will be making a contribution. There is the refuse recyclable area that Mr. Lynch referred to. It's a 10 by 20 enclosure. It may get a little bit bigger, and that's proposed along the southerly limit of the proposed yard area.
How's that enclosure made of?
Oh, I think it was, I'm not sure if it's fenced. Now you It's a board-on-board fence, pressure treated. So it's a board-on-board fence enclosure.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be vinyl. I mean, it's solid, it's 6 feet high.
6 feet high? Okay.
How's the garbage company going to get in there if the business is closed, let's say, when they get there?
Well, typically, that's arranged between the owner, on sites like this, it's arranged between the owner and the private hauler. All the hauling in this town is done privately, and that would be resolved between the owner and the carrier. You'd be rung in like anybody, and you have to come in during business hours or make other arrangements.
Mr. Chairman, just because this point was brought up, if you could touch upon emergency vehicles and how they will access this fenced-in area?
The fire company requested a Knox box, so for the building and for the access to the yard. We haven't resolved how the Knox box is going to be provided for the yard. There will be a Knox box for the building that the fire company requires. I have one on my own building. We have to do that. And they'll have to resolve a way to do it for the gate, because if the gate's going to be computer controlled inside, that will be resolved with the fire company and the police department.
But we will obtain final sign-off from them, however, whatever method they agree with, we will do.
Okay.
There's also lighting depicted on the plan. Although this is a daytime use from 8 to 5, you heard Mr. Lynch, it's desirable to have winter hours, so by 5 o'clock it could be dark. There are 22 pole-mounted lights throughout the site. They're 24 feet in height. And there are, there are 14 pole-mounted lights, and there are 22 wall-mounted lights. There are 2 on the ends of each of the proposed rear storage buildings. There's 7 on the front building. They're mostly over doorways and things. And there are 3 proposed on the existing building. Now, it provides sufficient illumination. The back is a little bit on the dark side. It's mostly for security. It's not intended, those are not public areas. Hours are over at 5 o'clock. There's not a need to light this up like a commercial retail site. It's not that type of use. So that's the way the lighting plan was laid out.
Excuse me, Mike?
Yes.
I just wanted you to clarify, on the plans, it does show different mounting heights. It shows a 15-foot, 12-foot, and 24-foot.
Yeah, it's 20, the pole mounts are 24.
Oh, it's 24.
The wall mounts, I think, are noted 10 to
10 and 12,
10
yeah.
to 12. Yeah.
Right, so, yeah, so then just remove that.
Yeah, we'll
note
make
there.
that clear. We got that note in your report. And I think I talked about the fenced portion of the site. While we're talking about that, I want to talk about the little bit of that 6-foot metal decorative fence. Because the property line along Squonkam Road is at an angle and the building is perpendicular, you got a situation where at the very northwest corner of the building, that 6-foot-high metal fence is slightly in the front yard. Your ordinance contains a provision that any fence in a quote-unquote front yard needs to be maximum of 4 foot high. Now, this is an open fence, but it's going to be 6 foot high for a very small area, about 15 feet into the front yard along the northerly line, and then it gets down to 0 because the building is within the rear, is outside the front setback. So we are asking for a variance relief for that very little bit of fence area. It's really it's a geometric consideration, and we're asking you to consider that as part of your deliberation. There also is one freestanding sign. It's on the northerly side of the proposed 2-way driveway. It's a monument sign, it's a ground sign, but it was designed size-wise as a pole-mounted sign. We've made it to be 60 square feet in size. It's set back 20 feet from the right-of-way line of Squonkam Road, and it's outside of any site triangles. There has been a design waiver cited in the board planner's report because monument signs are required to be either 3 by 12 or 4 by 10 in size and no more than 2 feet above the ground. I think this one's 2 foot 8 inches or something like that. We're asking for that waiver, and we're asking for the size to be as proposed. It's about 60 square feet. Now, remember, if we had come in with a pole-mounted sign, the existing sign at the Victor Art site is a pole-mounted sign that's about 15 feet in the air. The requirements could be met because it could be a pole-mounted sign, could be 80 square feet, and as long as it has 7-foot minimum bottom clearance, it could be done as a pole sign. We thought that a monument sign was a little bit more aesthetically pleasing, and although it exceeds the area requirements, it's detailed on the plan. It'll just simply say Victor Art Golf Cars, and we think that's a more attractive sign that warrants the design waiver consideration by the board.
Is that lighted sign?
You know, I don't think so. Wasn't lighted? No, it's not. No, it's not.
Not lighted, no.
I don't think so.
Mr. Chairman, quick question. Are you planning on putting some shrubs and plantings at the base of the sign?
That was cited in your report, and we will be doing that. I'll be going through your report in a minute.
Okay.
We leave no stone unturned. And lastly, I want to point out that the proposed site, other than that fence setback height variance, the site does not require any bulk variance relief. I mean, all the setbacks to the buildings are right, all the heights are right, there's no bulk variance requested as part of the site plan. Now, I'll go through the engineer's report and the planner's report, and I think we can address any of the design waivers as I do that, and then I'll close up by addressing the planning variance, if that's okay.
Just the question, looking on the south part of the lot, those are islands? 'Cause I see one that has 4 trees and then a very narrow, yeah, right around
Yes,
there.
yes.
Those are all islands?
Yes.
Or decorative type?
Well, they're for traffic flow control, and they do have some trees on them and some shrubs.
Okay. Yes.
I followed you with your fencing. The fencing starts at the northeast corner of the building, heads north.
Yep.
And then runs around the building and then comes and ties back in to the existing building, correct?
Yes.
Is the pond out front not fenced in?
No.
Does it not need to be?
It actually drains after the storm. It doesn't need to be fenced. I mean, that's your call.
No, it's a question. If it was not necessary, I don't want to, it's not a problem, yeah?
What we've usually practiced, if you're in the residential zone, we like to have it. When you're in SEDs, not particularly. You're not going to have children there, really.
That's good enough for me.
So it's, that's really been the way we've really followed the practice.
Which report are we starting with?
T&M report,
And that's dated April 3rd, is that correct?
April 3rd, 2017.
And generally, will you address all the technical comments?
Yes.
Okay, so you want to describe the waivers and/or variances that?
Yeah, I'm going to start on, I'm going to do the variances last. So let me do I'm on page 4. The waiver request for traffic, we have Mr. Kennel here if it's needed. We didn't think that a traffic report was warranted based on what you heard in the testimony, but Mr. Kennel is here if he can address any traffic questions. And we ask that any written descriptions of easements be deferred as a condition of approval. We will provide them. We are asking on number 3 a waiver. The applicant is proposing lighting with multiple locations of darkness adjacent to buildings and within paved areas. The minimum lighting of 0.3 candles shall be provided at ground level. Specifically, areas of darkness are proposed between the proposed storage buildings and behind the main showroom. I previously addressed that the hours of the site are 8 to 5, and that the site in those areas where it's dark, quote-unquote dark, is really security lighting and doesn't need to be as light as the front customer area, which does meet your ordinance standards. I think the planner pointed out that it might exceed.
Question, is it going to be, are those pole lights shielded?
They're downwardly directed. I believe that the lights that are adjacent to the southerly property line will be rear shielded. B, 3B, the site triangle to be provided, we will provide them. They are depicted on the plan, and they will meet the county requirements. 3C, a circulation plan or truck turning plan should be provided to illustrate access, fire lanes, site triangles, loading spaces. We can submit that plan. I'll represent that we've put turning templates on the driveways as well as around the site and the ability to get into and out of the site. We can provide that as a condition of approval, and we'll do that.
Yeah, that would be good.
3D, access drive shall be located where the center line is at least 30 feet from any property line. The proposed center line of both driveways does meet that standard. The center line of the 40-foot driveway, the curb is at 10, the center line's at 20, that's for 30, and the 24-foot driveway is more than 30 feet from the northerly property line.
Michael, you'll show that on the plan, because I got 28 feet.
From the southerly line?
Yeah.
Oh, well, it's
You'll mark it?
10 plus 20, yeah, we'll mark it.
Okay.
And on E, 3E, no loading zones are proposed while one loading zone is required. We'll address the loading zones, as Mr. Lynch testified, to the rear of the proposed building. We'll mark out a loading zone there. But remember that this is the type of use that loading and unloading of the carts occur throughout that entire rear yard area. So it's more of an exercise than anything else to mark the loading zone. We could as easily ask for a waiver on that. Number 4, the applicant should discuss, I'll address the use variance in a minute. Under 5, environmental impact report, we agree with A, C, and D are all statements of facts, and B is the freshwater wetlands, and I previously testified that the LOI has been obtained. On 6, addresses access. A, the site is gated. How will customers gain entry? We talked about that the customers have entry to the southern portion of the site via the two-way driveway. That's not fenced.
Excuse me, Mike, but how are customers going to know to go to that southern driveway as opposed to the northern one? I know that there's going to be a fence, but we don't want someone maybe turning and then realizing, oh, there's a fence. And
The ordinance does allow directional signage, we will add a directional signage for that driveway, and it would be marked truck and employee parking only.
Plus, the
Okay.
main sign is at the main driveway. That's the identification sign will be there.
Yeah, but you never know.
Yeah, I agree.
And the reason for the fence being set back, there's adequate, should someone mistakenly pull in there, they have the room to be off the road and can maneuver and get out. 24 feet will lend itself to a K-turn if necessary. Under 6B, with access, what type of trucks will enter? I think we talked about that. They're tractor trailers as well as delivery trucks, and the turning radii have been checked to comply with that.
And we'll provide that.
Yes, that's C. D, what about a fire truck? The fire company is okay with our circulation plan, and we've checked out a fire truck can make the same movements that the delivery trucks can make. Under 7, what provisions are made for fire protection? There will be a fire hydrant in front of the site with the water extension. Provide testimony on fire access. That would be the same way as any access for the building on the southerly side. They would utilize the 40-foot drive and the parking area. They'll have access through a Knox box or some arrangement to get into the northerly driveway, and then access to the site as needed to get in and out.
Item 8 was the previous conditions of approval that Mr. Lynch testified that he complies with presently, and he will continue to comply with that, which is no storage of outdoor parts or dismantled vehicles. And in fact, even the operational vehicles will now be stored inside if this were approved as proposed. And item 9 is stormwater management. Will we address all those comments?
I've discussed that with the board engineer, and we'll resolve that with the number of borings. We've done the sufficient number, and we'll satisfy the engineer to that regard. Some were done a little bit outside the area, but I believe he acknowledges that that's acceptable.
And plat comments, again, we'll address those?
Yes, we're going to address all those.
All right. And that covers Mr. Mallon's report, is that correct?
Yes.
The only thing I think, we talk about in the buffer zone? I didn't see that, Michael. I didn't hear it.
I'm going to address the buffer variance in total. May I?
Okay.
I'll do that at the end. Thank you.
All right, one thing that I missed on the review is the requirement of the ordinance in parking areas is to have the landscape islands every 10 spaces. Would you be able to do that?
We can do that. We can bump it out and add
Okay.
one landscape island in
Yes.
in the front,
Okay.
one in the top and one in the
Well,
bottom?
you're supposed to have it every 10 spaces.
Okay.
Okay, that's it.
All right, CME's report?
Yes,
Dated
dated-
April 18th,
Yes.
and you've covered many of the items through the testimony.
Yeah. Top of page 4, section A, that was the height of the fences. You heard my testimony regarding the height of the fence in the front yard. B is 188-22. The light intensity provided at ground level shall be a minimum of 0.3 anywhere, an average of 0.5. An average of 1.76 has been provided. That's the average for the whole site. The need to provide minimum lighting levels in the proposed storage building areas, I addressed that's really only for security. It's an 8 to 5 operation. We would request that waiver. Section 188-106F1A, all main driveways into commercial shall be a minimum of 30 feet wide. The northerly access drive is 24 feet in width, and that's because that's only a one-way drive, and 24 feet is more than sufficient for a one-way, and that's really acknowledged. We'll get to the Fire Commission, Fire Bureau, they were satisfied with it as well.
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
What is the distance, Mike, from the gate back to the traffic lane?
Here? On the north side?
Yeah.
It's about 85, almost 90 feet.
Okay. Beautiful. So not to the truck plus?
Yes, it's more than a truck. It's purposely designed that way.
Good with that?
C, all main D, all areas between parking areas in a building shall be landscaped. They noted that there's areas of turf in front of the buildings that can be landscaped. The applicant agrees to add that landscaping along the foundations where there's turf provided for the existing building as well as the proposed new building. We will do E, circulation aisle width for one-way traffic along 90-degree parking shall be 25 feet, 24 feet is proposed. That's the same waiver as the width of that driveway. You can see most of those parking spaces, once you pass that short piece of building, is actually wider than 24 feet, but even 24 feet for one-way is sufficient for the maneuvering, and we're requesting that waiver. On F, all street trees shall have a minimum diameter of 2.5 inches and shall be planted 40 to 60 feet apart. Currently, street trees have been proposed, however, they are located within the right-of-way. We discussed that those trees in the Squonkam Road right-of-way will be relocated back closer to the right-of-way line, so they're further from the road, which is good planning.
Do they form a site triangle problem?
No, typically, trees are noted to be pruned up to 7 feet.
Okay.
Also, they'll be outside the site triangle when they're set back, as proposed.
All right, fine, I just don't know if it was a tree or a bush or whatever
Yeah.
to create a problem.
By the way, I would note that the driveways and this site, both the existing and the proposed driveways, there's excellent sight distance in both directions. It's a fairly straight
Okay,
road.
thank you.
G, the commercial parking spaces and associated driveways shall be located a minimum of 50 feet from any side or rear property line which abuts a residential use. 10 feet is proposed to the driveway along the southerly property line adjoining 802, which is indicated to contain a residential office use. Again, that was the lot that was subdivided previously. There used to be an interconnecting driveway. There's a 10-foot strip, and then there's a 40-foot driveway. That driveway was located with the mindset of providing the proper circulation for the site. We are respectfully requesting that design waiver. If it needs to be 50 feet, that's really a whole buffer. We're going to address the buffer variance in a moment. Let me get to that. H, section 188-226E is another community design standards for parking areas exposed to public view, shall be surrounded by 3-foot-high visually impervious year-round screen. I previously testified that the proposed screening will be incorporated into the basin landscaping on the westerly side of the basin in front of that building. That will shield those parking spaces. Top of page 5, I and J were addressed by the architect. They're the architectural standards, 228C and 228D. K is 188-231L, that's the monument sign, required to be 12 feet long by 3 or 4 feet long by, and I previously testified that we're asking for that waiver in lieu of a pole-mounted sign, keeping it monument, and asking for the 60 feet and 2.6 feet in height to the base.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, Mr. Gala, but these would be variances, right? Instead of
I
design
think-
waiver?
Well, they're design waiver, they're in the community development design standards.
Yeah, it's listed after the zoning ordinance.
I know you're new here, but we've always treated community design standards as waivers. I heard that mentioned before when you were talking about the architectural standards. I'll defer to the council.
Well, but either way, we can provide testimony to support.
It's a variance.
It's under the design standards.
Haven't we always referred to them as waivers?
If it's contained in the zoning section, then it's a variance. If it's contained in the design section, then it's a waiver. This is under the design standards. This was added probably after the major ordinance was done, but it would be a waiver in this case because it's in the design section, design standards.
Yes. And, thank you. Thank you, Jack and John. L, we're going to comply with the planting along the base of the sign. We will do that. I guess we can get into the planning testimony. Should we answer the questions? I'm on number 6 on page 6. I think you've heard testimony on 6B, the overall operations of the site. C addresses the previous use variance for the low-speed vehicles, and all those conditions will be continued. D, they noted that, same thing, conditions with the prior use variance in 2008, those will be adhered to. E is the parking requirements. We talked about the parking requirements being suitable. We respectfully request that variance or waiver. In case it's 20% or more, it's a variance. So the way that parking is calculated for this site was based on the actual use, and we're asking you to adhere to the testimony on the record that the 39 spaces are adequate. F, the app indicates with submitted addendum.
That's at
Oh, that-
80%.
okay. Oh, okay. The amount and type of vehicles, materials, I think we talked about
But
that.
the 80% is,
Oh, yeah, that's really a yeah. The applicant indicates with the submitted addendum to its application that the proposed site improvements would permit approximately 80% of the on-site inventory to be stored within the various proposed buildings. I believe the reason that was done is because there's times of the year when there's staging areas and when they're awaiting either a pickup or after a delivery of the cars. Some of the cars are outside for a while before they get worked on and eventually stored. So that's why it was stated as 80%, whereas Mr. Lynch said they would all be
so
inside.
that's a temporary
Condition.
storage only.
G is the need for a 50-foot buffer, which I will address in a minute. H is the need for compliance with the retail use. I'd like to address that in a moment. And 225 tree. I on the bottom, the need for compliance with ordinance section 188-225G requiring all lots to have a private walkway access to a public sidewalk within the right-of-way must be reviewed. Frankly, I've been up and down the road here on Squonkam Road. There are no sidewalks in the area. There is not any pedestrian traffic anticipated for this particular use, so there's no sidewalks proposed to the building from Squonkam Road, and we're asking for a waiver of sidewalks along Squonkam Road for this application. Page 8.
We talked about that already.
Oh, yeah.
That's the two temporary, the.
Yeah, the two,
final
that's
phase.
right.
We'll put the fence outside of those last two buildings in case they're ever built. We'll agree to that.
And on K, the operations of the gated access, we talked about that would be worked out with the fire company. The need for any utility easement, there is an easement shown for the proposed sanitary sewer connection on the site to the Township of Howell. M, we talked about the use of the mezzanine level as light part storage. N, whether any water recycling recovery system is proposed that will be associated with any wash areas will have a recycling system. O is compliance with the general standards of performance. I think we're good in all those areas. And P, the need for any improvements, curb, sidewalk widening, right-of-way dedication along Lakewood Farmingdale Road. Their office deferred to Monmouth County. But yes, we are curbing the road. We are widening it to 20 feet from center line. There's no sidewalk existing or proposed. And the right-of-way dedication to 40 feet from center line as required for this road was done back in 1992. We agree in number 7 to all of the technical comments in the CME report will be provided. And I think we're in the...
There's one last report. The fire official had 3 comments, and I believe we've agreed that we'll address all 3. Is that correct?
Yes, the fire lanes will be designated, the Knox box access for the building as well as the fenced-in area, and the current business uses of the above-ground tanks. They will be relocated and shown on the plan, and we will go back to the fire company for that. The other internal reports either are agreed to or had no comment. Mr. Howard did a report. He asked for testimony on the proposed use of the buildings at the rear of the property. They are storage, they are for a single user, they're all for this applicant.
Right, and the applicant would agree that those structures cannot be rented to third parties for storage. They will only be for the Victor Gerard use.
And the second part is about the one sign at the front. There's only the one sign, there's no building-mounted signs, Mr. Howard. And lastly would be some planning testimony on the record for the proposed variances. I'll put my planner's hat on now. So you have any engineering questions, or are we good?
Are you going to address the buffer now, or?
Yes. Buffer.
As a planner?
Yeah, I'm putting my planning hat on. All right. There's a couple of variances that have been cited in the professionals' reports and requested, but the main variance here is I'm calling it a use variance, but I really think it's an expansion of what was previously At the time that the use variance came forth for the low-speed vehicles in 2008, the resolution cited the Vic Girard site as a non-conforming use to the SED zone, and that's because the SED zone does not permit retail sales. And here you have a site where retail sales have occurred since they were created. They've always sold golf cars and leased golf cars. So when they did the resolution in 2008, they acknowledged that it was a pre-existing non-conforming use. With that use variance granted, there's a question whether we're an expansion of a non-conforming use or an expansion of a previously granted use variance. Having said that, I'm going to put forth proofs that I think will satisfy both. One is I've reviewed the Howell Township ordinances. Section 188-79 is the standards for the SCD zone. Purpose of that zone, it's in the very beginning of your ordinance, is to provide for a variety of economic development opportunities in areas of the township where rail and or highway infrastructure are readily available. That's exactly the situation with this site. This site is, like I said, only 1,500 feet north of Squonkam Yellowbrook Road. Just south of that is the 195 interchange. So you have access to 195, you have access to 547, which is a primary county road. I think it meets that purpose of the zoning precisely. The business is a long-standing existing business. It's been operating for a very long time with a very good track record, and it's looking to modernize and make its operation more efficient. So I think in accordance with the Howell ordinance, this is a perfect use at the right site because it's been there for so long. Second point I was going to make is the historical use of the property. It's been there since 1968. It was formerly, as many sites in Howell Township were in those days, was also the residence for the proprietor of the site, and it remained that way until the late 1990s when it was sold. The proposed site plan will serve to modernize this site and enhance its operation and allow for aesthetic upgrades through landscaping, through proper lighting, through proper stormwater management. One of the tests you would use for a D1 use variance would be, is the site particularly suited for the proposed use and the development? Again, we should recognize it's a current use and an operation. It's located on a Squonkam Road, which is a primary county highway, which is appropriate for any use in the SED zone. And the size of the site is much larger than required for the zone. The zoning requires a little bit less than 3 acres, 120,000 square feet. In this case, there's 16.9 acres, the whole site, of which about 7 acres or so is being used for the proposed operation. So there's plenty of room for what's being proposed to be done. We should look at this site as a proposed use or expansion of a use. And in as much as it's an old site, it lends itself to proper modernization and aesthetic improvements that you get when you modernize and bring the site up to date. There'll be curbed and controlled access. There'll be curbed and paved parking areas that don't currently exist. There'll be the stormwater management that doesn't currently exist. There'll be the landscaping amenities that don't exist. The storage tanks for the gasoline and diesel will be brought up to code. The elimination of the septic system and the provision of public sewerage. Those are all seen as positives for any redevelopment of a site, and the board should keep that in mind. The other thing we look at is the advancement of purposes of zoning. I think one of the primary purposes this one is serving is subsection I of Municipal Land Use Law 40:55D-2. Subsection I is the promotion of a desirable visual environment through creative development techniques and good civic design and arrangement. I think that the aesthetic improvements to the site does provide a desirable visual environment, provide a better looking site than what exists today. Although it's not unsightly in any regard, it would be a current building, a modern building, meeting the standards of the township, and the site would meet the standards of the township. Another purpose of zoning that's advanced, whereas the current site doesn't really promote the free flow of traffic through the site. That was one of the cited difficulties why the owner undertook this site plan. In this case, with the driveways as proposed and the circulation through the site and the 2 driveways on the site for a relatively narrow piece of property. I say narrow, it's 270 feet, but with respect to its length, it's kind of a long and narrow property. The driveways as proposed provides a good traffic flow into and out of the site. Another purpose of zoning is subsection G, which provision of sufficient space and appropriate locations for a variety of uses, both public and private, and industrial, whatever nature of the use. The municipal land use law calls for zoning that provides for a variety of uses, and this use is an existing one, and it's an appropriate location, and it's appropriately in an SED zone. I don't think there's any other zone that you would have this as a permitted use. So I think we're in the right place, we're the right property, and it's the right use for this. So I think with all those findings of fact, there should be no such substantial detriment to either the public good or the vicinity or the neighborhood, and there will be no substantial impairment to your zone plan or the zoning ordinance of the town. So I think that should satisfy the warrants for the D variance. The other variance we're asking for is a perimeter buffer variance. A perimeter buffer variance is required between any non-residential use and either a residential use or a residential zoning district. In this case, there's two pieces of property that could be affected by that. First one I'll address is across Squonkam Yellowbrook Road. That's an ARE 6 zoned property that's in ownership by the NJDEP, which to me lends itself that it's a conservation land. I don't really see the necessity of a buffer to that. In any case, the area that would be the buffer is being used for access driveways, which you have to have for any site. And in this case, stormwater management, which is appropriately located because it's at the lower elevation of the site and is the right area to manage stormwater before it's discharged from the site. So having said that, in conjunction with the fact that the landscape, the basin will be landscaped, and the street trees that will provide a streetscape for the area, I think those combination of elements don't meet a buffer requirement, but in essence provides the aesthetic treatment to that area site sensitive to being across from conservation lands. The other piece of property that's affected is Lot 802. Again, that is the piece of property that was subdivided back in 1992. It was subdivided before the Board of Adjustment because of the Raspberry case, in which case a non-conforming use at the time was being reduced in size. It was found that the subdivision could be granted without detriment to buffers. In fact, for many years, there was an interconnection between the sites. In this case, for a proposed upgrade of the traffic of the site, there's a proposed driveway in that area, so the 10 feet and the 40-foot driveway encumber that 50-foot buffer. I don't believe there's any technical difficulty by that, by virtue that the residence over the course of time has gradually become non-residential in nature with the construction of a 10,000 square foot storage building that's leased out to individual car collectors, and by use of the property for a non-residential purpose, that is the parking of the excavator's equipment in the freestanding masonry garage. So for those reasons, I think we could, and the fact of the history of the property being created from the site itself, I think that's a warrant enough to give credence to the approval of that buffer variance. And I think it can be done without substantial detriment to the public good or the neighborhood. I'm not sure if that neighbor is here. I don't see him. So obviously he's been noticed. He has no objection to this site plan, I would think. Having said that, the other three variances we've addressed in our testimony already. That's the fence variance for the height of 6 foot in the front yard. I believe we beat that to death, and I think it's a good variance because it's open and it's for a very small area of the frontage. It's not entirely encumbering the frontage of the site. The second one was the parking variance. It was cited as a variance, but because when you apply the 12 bays at 4 spaces per bay, it kicks up the parking demand to a lot more than is really required for the specifics and the nature of this use and operation. I think the board can feel comfortable with granting that either as a variance or a waiver, however it sees fit. And lastly, there's one variance that's cited, or I'm not sure if it's a variance or a waiver. It's the area of the retail use. The SED zone limits the maximum floor area devoted to a retail use to either 5% of the gross floor area or 1,000 square feet, whichever is less. In this case, I previously testified that when you add the showroom and the parts service, those are the retail areas, they add up to 2,160 square feet. Compared to when you add up all the floor areas that are on the storage buildings and the proposed new building, it's a rather minor amount when you compare it to the 40,000 square foot of buildings on the overall site. And even that, the nature of the retail aspect is a specialty one. It's not your shopping center or mall or any kind of retail that you're accustomed to that is a custom and needed to be passed by traffic where you on an impulse would pull into. This would be a destination type of retail where a customer that needs a part or specifically looking to buy a golf cart, you don't drive past Victor R and say, oh, I think I'll buy a golf cart today. That doesn't happen. It's a destination type of use. So we feel that the area of the retail use and the fact that it's encumbered by a showroom for golf cars needs to be a little larger in area. That's a consideration the board should lend itself. It's something that's been going on. The existing canvas building that is currently the showroom is 2,744 square feet. So actually it's being reduced in size because it'll be more efficient. So given all those criteria for those last three variances I discussed, I think you could feel comfortable that you can grant that without any substantial detriment to the zone plan or zone ordinance.
That's all we have, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Any questions from professionals?
The only comment I would have, Mr. Geller, you'd be kind enough to submit a copy of the LOI?
Yes.
And what is the status of the county approval?
We've been to the county, we've received their comments. They made some comments, one regarding the two driveways. We now have a traffic report from Mr. Kennel that we will be providing them to get that approved. And we have some comments regarding drainage and the street tree location. So we will be addressing the county approval.
Okay, but it would be subject to county approval?
Oh,
no matter
yes,
what.
and
Okay.
soil conservation.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any question on the planning? You're okay?
Not really. I think Mr. Geller did a splendid job of explaining. I know we discussed about whether it being a D variance or an expansion of a non-conforming use, and he did address my concern and did testify to it being a use variance, which is what I was leaning more towards, and he did prove the negative and the positive criteria of the requirement.
Any questions from the board? So we have one more witness. I don't know if you want to take a break?
If you need, you want to hear Mr. Kennel? Your call.
Do we need any traffic, or we good? Yeah. You good, Tom, with the, you need traffic testimony? You guys good? All right.
Yeah, and it's a county road, so we have to submit a full traffic report to the county, and we'll be glad to copy your professionals with that report.
We do, we do require a break here.
All right.
How about we just take a 10-minute break?
Fine.
And then we'll discuss if we're going to have any traffic testimony. You need a motion? All right.
Motion to take a 10-minute break.
Oh, we don't need a motion. Need a second?
Second.
All right. All right, 10 minutes, so we'll come back at 9:55.
The board will now recess. The board will now reconvene.
Hi, Mr. Alfieri, talking with some of the members, we will skip the traffic.
Thank you.
Sorry, Scott.
And then, Mr. Chair, that would conclude our presentation.
Okay. Any further questions from anyone? Professionals, board? All right, we'll just open it up to public, so I need a motion.
I'll make a motion to open it up to the public.
I'll second it.
Okay, so motion by Mr. Armato, second by Mr. O'Donnell, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Anyone in the public willing to make any comments? Seeing none, need a motion to...
Motion to close?
Second.
Bloom. Second by Mr. Amato, all in favor?
Aye.
Second? Any opposed? None? All right, so, last time, round table. Anyone, professionals, any questions? Anyone on the board? Any questions? Mr. Alfieri, you want to make any more comments?
Well,
Summary?
just very briefly, we're not expanding the use. This is a far more attractive design than what's currently out there. The business is not going away. It's just a more efficient operation. There won't be storage of outdoor vehicles any longer. As Mr. Geller indicated, we're going to have stormwater management now. We're going to have curbing. We're going to have controlled access points. For all those reasons, we think it's a tremendous project and a tremendous improvement for the applicant and for the town.
Okay. Thank you. All right, so what is the board's decision?
I'd like to make a motion, but first I'd like to say that I was very pleased with the way it was presented by the both of you, and I agree with everything that pretty much you had to say, and it is a very nice improvement for Howell Township. I do agree with this, and it is the type of improvements, that we're looking for and we need. And I believe that we could give you the waiver on the sidewalks, the waiver on the roof, the waiver on the crop out for the length of the building, the waiver on the signage, and the knock box fire department to be resolved by you guys. And the buffer variance is okay with me, and the D variance is okay, and the other 3 variances with the fence, the parking, and the retail use is all okay. So my motion is to approve this project.
Okay, any seconds?
I'll second it. I drive by this establishment almost every day, and it's always been clean and neat. The traffic is minimal. I don't go to buy it in the early morning or quitting time, but outside of that, I don't think I've seen more than 1 vehicle a month go either in or out. So there was really no reason for a traffic report. Anyway, I wish them well, and I think it's a good plus for Howell. Thank you.
No, we are. All right, so we have a motion to approve by Mr. O'Donnell, second by Mr. Amata. Eileen, can we have a roll call, please?
Yes, you may. Mr. Amata.
Yes.
Mr. O'Donnell.
Yes.
Mr. Posh.
Yes.
Mr. Turk.
Yes.
Mr. Bloom.
Yes.
And Chairman San Clemente.
Yes, good luck with
Thank you
the
very
project.
much.
Motion carries.
Good night.
Right.
Thank you, everyone.
Any other business that we have? Okay. So I need a motion to close out the meeting.
Motion to adjourn?
Second that motion.
Okay. Motion by Mr. Bloom, second by Mr. O'Donnell, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? So we will end this meeting at 10 o'clock.